You started strong. A few days in, it felt like it might actually stick this time. Then you missed one day, just one. No big deal, you told yourself. But the next day was harder, and the day after that, until the habit was gone, and you were back to zero, wondering what you did wrong. Here's what actually happened, and it has nothing to do with your willpower. The real problem: most people assume habits fail because they stop trying, so they try again with more intensity, a stricter plan, a bigger commitment, more rules, and it works for a few days. Then the same collapse happens at roughly the same point. That pattern is telling you something. If effort alone were the issue, more effort would fix it, but it doesn't, which means something else is happening underneath, something invisible but very predictable. How habits are actually built. Most people think habits run on willpower, that every day you just push yourself through resistance until one day it becomes automatic. But willpower is wildly inconsistent. Some days it's there, some days it's not. If habits depended on willpower, nobody would have them. Habits are actually built on feedback loops. Your brain is constantly asking one question: does this behavior feel rewarding enough to repeat? When the answer is yes, the behavior gets reinforced. When the answer is no, or when something else feels more rewarding, the behavior weakens. At the start of a new habit, motivation fills in the gap. Everything feels new and intentional, but motivation is fueled by novelty, and novelty fades fast. Once it's gone, you're left with the raw experience of the habit itself. And most habits, at their core, don't feel immediately rewarding. They feel effortful, uncomfortable, slow to pay off. That's when your brain starts reevaluating and quietly starts deciding this isn't worth repeating. The loop you don't see. Here's the specific mechanism that breaks habits. When you do the habit and it feels neutral or hard, no immediate reward. When you skip it, instant relief, no effort, no friction, no discomfort. That relief is also a reward, a strong one. Your brain registers it as skipping equal sign comfort. And now your brain has two options. It's comparing: doing the habit, effort now, reward later; skipping the habit, comfort now, nothing lost right now. In that comparison, skipping wins. Not because you're weak, because your brain is always optimizing for immediate return. So every time you skip, you're not just missing a day, you're actively strengthening the competing loop. Avoidance. And that loop gets stronger each time without you noticing, until one day the habit collapses, not slowly, but suddenly, because the competing pattern finally outweighed the original one. Why it feels like you failed. This is why habit failure feels so personal. It feels like something changed inside you, like you lost something: discipline, drive, commitment, but nothing changed inside you. What changed was the balance of reward signals in your brain. At the beginning, the habit felt meaningful enough to sustain. Over time, the effort stayed the same, but the novelty that made it feel worth it disappeared. And your brain, without any conscious input from you, quietly shifted in the direction of less resistance. You didn't fall off. You followed a system that always gravitates toward the path of least immediate cost. The shift. The problem isn't that you can't stick to habits. The problem is that most habits aren't designed in a way your brain naturally wants to repeat. That's a design problem, not a character flaw. And design problems have design solutions. Solution one: make it small enough to bypass resistance. Your brain doesn't resist the habit itself. It resists the emotional weight you've attached to it. Work out every day carries enormous weight. So does study for an hour or write every morning.
The moment you encounter that kind of demand with low energy or low motivation, the avoidance reflex kicks in. So shrink it, not work out for an hour. Just put on your shoes, not write a full entry. Just open the notebook, not meditate for 20 minutes. Just sit down for 2. These aren't shortcuts, they're entry points. Your brain doesn't resist small actions. Once you're doing the small thing, continuing is dramatically easier. The resistance was never about the activity, it was about the starting. Solution 2, create an immediate reward. Your brain is terrible at delayed gratification. If the reward is 6 weeks away, in the form of visible results, better health, improved skills, your brain is barely motivated. So you need to create a reward that happens immediately after the habit, something your brain can actually register. It doesn't need to be big. A check mark on a visible tracker, a short break you genuinely enjoy, a small ritual you only do after completing the habit, even internal acknowledgement, pausing for 5 seconds and noticing that you did the thing. This creates the connection your brain needs. Habit. Something good happens right now. That's what drives repetition, not the distant outcome, the immediate signal. Solution 3, never let one skip become 2. Missing a day is normal. Habits don't die from single breaks. They die from the second break, because the second break starts to look like a pattern, and your brain always prefers patterns over intentions. When you miss a day, the priority is not to feel guilty about it. The priority is to make the next day non-negotiable. Even a reduced version of the habit is better than 0. A 2-minute walk instead of a full workout. 1 paragraph instead of a full writing session. The chain matters more than any individual link. Protect it. You don't fail habits because you lack discipline. You fail them because your brain is always automatically moving toward whatever carries the strongest immediate reward. That's not a flaw. That's the system working exactly as designed, just optimized for the wrong timeline. Once you understand that, you stop fighting yourself. You stop treating every failed habit as evidence that you're not capable. You start designing behavior instead of demanding it. The habits that stick aren't the ones you forced. They're the ones you built in a way your brain found easier to continue than to abandon. Next week, why overthinking feels like progress, and why it's actually the brain's most convincing way of avoiding action.